let's get down to
Alright.
business.
Okay. So there's this guy named Shiro that I know, or kind of a mutual friend of Rooster's. Um,
Uh-huh.
my understanding is that he's half Japanese or part Japanese. So, and I haven't spoken with him before, so I want to see how this is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. All right, let's see if this will work. All right.
Japanese has like 3 different alphabets, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not sure. Shiro would be the expert. If I can get him to answer, because I was just writing to him. But from my understanding, it's like if you look at it historically, um,
Mm.
they kind of made their own language based off of one of the Chinese languages, and over time they did, I think, like 2 revisions of the language.
Ah, okay.
So there is kanji, which is like the original one, and apparently like the toughest one to learn. And I think it's due to the complexity of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's one, which I think the most recent one is what is like average conversation, and then there's one before that they use for like, I guess, like a transliteration of English words. Like,
Right.
I'm trying to think how to exactly explain it. Like
Oh
they
my.
were using computer as an example. As an example, like instead of saying computer, they say computera or something like that.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
Um, from what I've been like, my exposure really to Japanese, all that I have was like when I was,
Anime.
well, this even before anime and all that was I went to like an international language academy when I was really young. Like to give an example, this would have been for me second grade through eighth grade. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's pretty much like primary school and a little bit of secondary. And we had, and really in my city, we only have like 2 or 3 people who are teaching Japanese, and it's only done for like public schools if you're in that special program. And for me, I was in French, um, and then kind of gave up on French, then went to Spanish. Let me see why Shiro's not answering. This is weird. Uh, Shiro is also not a
Okay,
person who
muted.
likes to go like invisible mode. But yeah, so basically
Invisible.
we had somebody like Furuka
Oh.
Sensei or something the other. But all that I know is like I know a couple of like greetings. Um, I know how to write basically like 1, 2, 3, and I know like a couple of words, and that's it. Um, so unless Shiro all of a sudden joins, which I don't know if he will or not, um, what I know, I mean, there's uh, like your good morning, good day, good afternoon, good night, or any of the variations of that. I think in Japanese, from my understanding, it's just mainly 3 or so. There is Ohio, which is good morning. Konnichiwa, which is like good day or good afternoon. And then
Mm-hmm.
Konbanwa is like good evening. Or I think sometimes it's used for good night as well. And then I'm not sure if there's like if even if that's correct or not, but it's from my understanding that's what they say is like the thing to be saying. Um, and then there's like goodbye
Mhm.
is sayonara, but my understanding is like that's not necessarily correct because it's implying like you won't see somebody for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, so
So there's an alternative
yeah,
ways.
there's some sort of alternative that which is used like in common talk or common speech.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm not sure what that is. I know. Let's see. I know that like 1, 2, 3 is like each Nissan. Um, but I imagine there's a little bit of pronunciation differences or something or the other, and everything else from there is like what I can get off of from like anime. Like I know, like Baka is kind of like calling somebody stupid. Um, I think mate or chotomate or something like that is like stop. Um, and then pretty much anything else I know from there is kind of like directly from what I know from either Naruto or like any other like show or from there. Which was weird because like back when I was in school, nobody would share what they knew of another language, and I don't know why. It was almost like it was this weird own club, but um, it probably had to do something with like our principal at the time was this German lady who kind of ran the
Mhm.
school only in favor of the German language.
Okay.
So it was kind of a weird system there. Like all other languages were
Wait.
didn't get like funding or something the other. So it was kind of a
What
weird.
language was the? Wait, where were you?
So okay, so to give you this is where I live. When I was growing up, the same city. Um, there's one main school that they call the Language Academy. It went by different names. Um, but the school was like divided up into 4 languages, which slowly grew to like 6. But it was mainly like German, French, Spanish, and then some Asian language. I think Japanese was the first one, and then it went to also include like Chinese and I think some other language as well. Either some European language. I don't know which one. Um, but the school was kind of like mm, almost like prejudice to other languages, in a way to put it. Um, like German kids always like they had a soccer field built for them or football. Um, they had like they were the first kids to always like take international trips. Um, everybody else usually had to do it towards the end of the school year. So it had their own like weird system like that. I don't know what it's like in New Zealand. I don't imagine they do teach other languages there, or how's it like?
Um. So growing up, it's mainly just the English language, and then like it's kind of a bit of Kireo in there as well. Like I think as time goes on, it's becoming more inclusive, like the native language. So hopefully, like what I would have preferred to have done is learn both of the language as I grew up.
What the heck? Come on. What's it doing? There we go. Sorry,
Hello.
Discord was acting weird for a second. So you're saying you like both the language growing up?
Yeah, so we just learned the one language with like words of the native language sprinkled in.
Uh, yeah, here it's like
Um,
you either it's English or you are like a child of some kind of immigrant family. Usually
hmm
Spanish it would be another language statistically here. But yeah, I get you.
yeah. So, and then as soon as you get into college, which is like for 14 years old, 13, 14, you can take optional subjects, and they will provide you with another language. And at my school, they do Te Reo again, like an actual course, and you can also do French. And I think they do other languages later on as well, but I don't know.
Oh, because for me,
That's
like
that's pretty much how it is.
mine's was sort of weird. Like mine's, I guess, like I didn't take any foreign languages until second grade. Um, pretty much
Uh-huh.
like your basically English classes, and then for whatever reason, our school would teach the same like beginner's level of like French, and they would just do that nonstop for me it was like 5 years in a row, and then they started just rapidly getting tougher or just like a higher difficulty of the language without having any progress and we didn't have any really good teachers, at least when I was in like
Uh-huh.
an upper or middle school, or what was that, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And then because my French ability was so abysmal, they couldn't continue teaching me French, so I had to switch, and I ended up restarting from scratch with Spanish. And
Uh-huh.
from there, I mean, I did manage to get it to a decent level of Spanish. Um, but like towards the end, we had some really like excessive teachers. Like I had one teacher who was like the daughter of some like ambassador, and she knew like
Uh-huh.
7 languages, so she was like ingrained into learning everything. And uh, for like American standards, that's considered to be beyond weird to know so many languages. Um, and as a
You never
result,
get
we had
like good jobs with that.
yeah, like it's good, but like Americans for whatever reason they consider that to be weird. Like unless you are like working for United Nations or something like political, I guess. There's not really much of an incentive, or at least in my city, to know that many languages. Like Spanish would be fine, and anything other than Spanish is just considered extra,
Yeah,
unless you
I mean,
go
I
and yeah,
I can see why though, because America's like just a mainly English speaking language, and if you're speaking any other languages, it's usually for like translator roles
yes,
or something esque, if you know what I mean.
right, yeah, and it's that's what the case is because, like, for me, like I know Russian. There is fortunately a population of Russians who live in my city, but there's no actual like business use for it. Like there's maybe
hmm
in the whole city area maybe two or three little like mom and pop shops that that are owned by Russians that would only serve that use. However, all that every other Russian that lives in the city, they're all into like trucking or into some job where it's not like considered usually either high paying or high level jobs, or it's a job where the people want to actually hide that they know Russian or have anything to do with Russia, because people end up having some sort of conspiracy theories, and then there'll be some sort of like prejudice or something
Yeah.
in that area. Like we have a famous example. We had this doctor who was from some sort of Russian speaking country. But because she was doing everything, you could say Russian standard, it wasn't up to the actual like American medical legal standard, and she ended up losing her doctor's license because they found out like some kind of crazy stuff she was doing. But yeah, so translating is really the only other like special area, which is usually just used for like
Hmm.
medical stuff. So translating in our city is pretty useful if you can get a job with it, which for me has been tough. But the one time I actually had to use it, it did pay off fairly decently for like a couple of hours of work. I made over $200. So it is something that
Yeah.
is absolutely will work if you know how to use it in your favor. But other than that, it's not something you would commonly use. Unlike, say, in Europe, whenever I went to Europe, e- like everybody who had some sort of job, they knew at least like four languages. Like in Europe, it's
Mm.
common for people to know several languages. I think the craziest part was like when I went to um, in Spain you kind of see it like a little bit, but like in Russia when I was in like the main street, all of the tour shops, like literally what they did was they would hire kids who went to like one of the international schools, and these kids would just off the bat, you could speak to them in any languages and they would be able to switch back and forth between whatever without any issues.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost um like literally it's hard to imagine unless you're actually there. um like in Spain we had a I don't know what happened in Spain exactly. I remember um getting to the airport in Madrid, and I was trying to figure out um like where to go for like a hotel, and these like teenage girls, probably like 15, 16, 17-year old, trying to sell you like taxi passes. And I'm assuming that they're Spanish speakers, so I go up to them and I'm like, ustedes saben cómo hablar inglés, or like, do you all know how to speak English or something or other, was what I said.
Hmm.
And they say yeah, and they start full on telling me about their whole taxi program and whatever. And then I go up to my mom in Russian and I'm like, in Russian, telling them that they're trying to sell me some stuff and I'm not able to get what I want. And then the girl starts running over to me talking in Russian, and I'm like, oh Lord, you know, because it's weird because it's like it's something that's non-existent in the U.S. Having these people who basically know whatever you're saying, and it's kind of freaky in a way too. So I mean, it's strange how across the world you get these interesting things like that happening.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to know like more languages, but like I feel like it's a lot better to learn them from a young age. And then for me, I can't learn another language without sacrificing one of my other subjects, which I need for my desired career. So if I want to learn another language now, I have to teach it to myself.
Right.
There's no other way,
Like,
which kind of sucks.
yeah, like what see my big pet peeve is like when I was learning French, like I kind of learned how to read it, but nobody taught me really how to speak it that well. And then, switching over to Spanish and all that, I kind of instantly forgot all of the French that I knew learning kind of growing up. But like I know like one complex thing, which is how to say the American Pledge of Allegiance um, song that they teach in
Oh
school.
yeah.
But I know how to say that in French, sort of. But it's like a butchered like pronunciation of the thing, because again, no one taught me the pronunciation. But like, however, later on, like when I was working at the airport, we had people from France and like Canadian French people come over, and kind of barely understand what they're saying, but like I could read their passports and then like everything starts to make sense.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a weird factor in that case as well. Um, but I don't know. It's just, to me, it's strange. Like, my big pet peeve is that when there's no like consistencies in languages, or each language has their own like weird rules that in some cases you can understand, or once you know what they are, you get the hang of everything. While other languages have their own like irregular things going on all the time. Um, that just makes the whole deal even more confusing. Which is partly why I ended up going to Spanish, because Spanish, for the most part, the way they speak it is the same way it's written, without any like weird things going on to it. And it's also
Yeah.
probably the most similar to English that I can think of, without having too many like weird symbols and whatever. But I don't know, French for me is was really difficult because of just the way they pronounce everything. Like, almost, I feel like it was probably better if I would just to learn how to like talk without the writing part, because I feel like the writing and the speaking is just so vastly different than like Spanish. Like, for example, with Italian, if I were to look at Italian and then listen to the way people speak in Italian, there's enough coordination with the way they speak and the way the writing system is that you can kind of make sense of things. But back to Japanese, like when I look at the way, because for them they have characters that make sounds, they don't have letters. So
Hmm.
like, and then there's certain consonants, like you don't have L's really in Japanese. You have kind of like an R sound, um, which according to some sources, it's not even like a real like American or English R sound. It's more like a mix between the two. Um, so it's it's kind of a like a weird system. Like, even when I look at their sounds, they certain sounds they don't have like they would have in like Latin languages. Like they kind of have like mami memu, but they have like a symbol for each sound, and then the symbols don't really look the same. Like, there's no way to like tell, oh, these are the M sounds, these are the T sounds.
Ah, right.
Yeah, it's all like, this is a drawing that kind of looks like a tree, it makes this sound. Like, this is a drawing that kind of looks like a house, it makes that sound. It's more like to that nature. And
So it's not necessarily as consistent.
yeah, like, the only way I remember 1, 2, 3 is because it's literally one line, like one dash, two dashes, and three dashes. But after like four and up, it does their own thing. There's no like coordination.
Hmm.
So that's where I guess
Hmm.
where I ended up getting stuck. And then like, I would never want to. Well, I feel like Chinese would be a nightmare for me because their symbols are far more complex. Like, at least with Japanese, their characters don't have as many like lines or dots or whatever. Um, as compared to Chinese, it's a lot more complex, and Korean pretty much is almost like Chinese, except for it's a little bit more simplified, and then they have circles. But then like Vietnamese is like they use Latin letters, but they have like a bunch of accents and other like symbols on the letters that are meant to like have little variations in the pronunciations of like vowels that to me just looks chaotic. Um, which is probably the toughest part about the whole thing is just like, getting started and then not knowing where to go. And like, even with Russian, um I don't speak Russian 100% correctly all the time. I always have some sort of like grammatical issue or something. And with Spanish, like, there's textbooks and stuff you can really read, but like, and kind of study on. But with Russian, I haven't found
Hmm.
anything good as of yet. And like, I mean, I do have like Russian books and like Russian kids books, but it's like, it doesn't really help you unless you have an actual like textbook that tells you, okay, these are this grammatical rules when you do this or when you do that, as compared with Spanish that has that.
I agree with you on the French part though, because like a year and a half ago, we had a compulsory half-year language course, and I chose French, and I found the writing quite easy, like just learning the words and then
Yeah, like
writing them down and hearing them, but actually speaking them, I found it quite difficult.
right, because
Before the
it has like their own, like they eat up like the last syllable or the last consonant or something, and then on top of
yeah,
that, it's like certain ways, like when certain letter combinations are together, they make certain sounds. So I mean, to me, that threw me off of French as well. Mhm. All right, well, unfortunately, Shiro, I thought he was online. He told me he was online and not busy. So, but
huh.
yeah, I guess if Shiro gets online later on, we'll have another call. But Farrell, I'm gonna talk to you later. I have somebody
Yeah,
calling me on the phone right now. I'll talk to you later. All right.
yep, all good. I'll see you later.
All right. See you later. Take care.
Have a good one.